بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we'll continue on and move on to the next chapter, continue on in our reading of the book of major sins, and we move on to a new chapter which is linked to the previous one about speech and use of the tongue and words that are said that fall into major sin. And this is just a logical continuation, as the Shaykh has entitled this chapter of speech or beautifying speech, and where the Shaykh mentions here, let's have a look here where it says babun at-tashadduk wa takalluf al-fasaha, and the Shaykh says that it's related to speaking a lot. So like the previous chapter, speaking a lot and increasing in the amount of speech that one is busy with or gets busy with or speaks a lot, basically. So the Shaykh, he quotes an ayah from the Quran, from Surah Al-Munafiqun, verse 4, part of it, the starting part of it. And if we have a look at this, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ وَإِن يَقُولُوا تَسْمَعْ لِقَوْلِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ خُشُبٌ مُسَنَّدًا. So I've read a bit extra there. And if you look at the English meaning of that, in the translation, the meanings of that in English, then where Allah says, and when you look at them, their bodies please you, and when they speak, you listen to their words. So the Shaykh will explain this as he's quoted it. So the Shaykh, he mentions that this chapter is to do with, and it's a continuation of what we've been discussing and going through. As the Shaykh has been explaining it, it's to do with speaking a lot. So those who speak a lot, and he goes on to say, those who speak a lot but they don't have any restraint in their speech, that's the main thing. They speak a lot, because you could speak a lot but you could be speaking a lot of good, and you can speak a lot and you could be speaking a lot of bad. But we're talking about people who speak a lot and they don't have any restraint with regards to those things that are wrong, that are said when they are said and they are wrong, considered wrong. So the Shaykh says here, هو الإكثار من الكلام والتوسع فيه وعدم الاحتراز من آفات اللسان وإنما يتشدق بالكلام ويحاول أن ينمق حديثه وألفاظه، ولكن المضمون لا نفع فيه أو فيه مضرة عليه وعلى من يستمع إليه، وهمه هو تزويق الكلام وتنميقه وتجميل الألفاظ بحيث تشد السامع فيه. So here the Shaykh, he goes on to say, he says that the purpose of this person's speech, this type of person who speaks a lot and doesn't have any safeguards when it comes to those things that are considered bad in language, whether that's swearing or whether that's saying wrong things or whatever it may be. This person doesn't have that. It doesn't really, is not aware or doesn't care, not bothered, just freely speaking with no limits, basically. And the idea is that the person wants to just increase in their speech, wants to beautify their speech, and that's the intent for whatever reason. actually, in actual fact, if you assess that type of speech, then there's no real benefit in it, and rather there'll be a harm for the person who's listening to it, to that type of speech. And the person's purpose of that speech is just to beautify it, to make things, to make it look good, or sound good, should we say, and like a way of showing off and speaking in a beautified manner. That's it. That's all it is. That's the purpose. So then the Shaykh continues. He continues to explain this. He says, وَتَكَلُّفَ الْفَصَاحَةِ لَا تَأْتِي الْفَصَاحَةِ عِنْدَهُ سِجِيًّا وَإِنَّمَا يتكلف الفصاحة، يتكلف البيان، جمال المنطق، لكن المضمون، المعاني، الحقائق، هذه لا نفع فيها أو فيها مضرة عليه وعلى من يستمع إليه. قال الله عز وجل: وإذا رأيتهم أي المنافقين تعجبك أجسامهم، نظارة الأجسام وترتيب الهيئة والهندام والمظهر إلى آخره، تعجبك أجسامهم، وإن يقولوا تسمع لقولهم. لماذا؟ لأنهم يتفننون في تنميق الكلام وتجميل الكلام وتأثير على السامع، حتى إن من يستمع يعجبه قوله، ويدخل في كلامه أشياء حسنة ليتوصل من خلالها إلى أشياء محرمة وباطلة يلبسون الحق بالباطل. So then the Shaykh continues. He says, and he mentions the verse again, that and let's go back to the verse. And when you look at them, their bodies please you, and when they speak, you listen to their words. And the Shaykh is saying, because their focus when they're speaking is to get their point across, whatever they're trying to say, and beautify the speech, and they speak well. But in reality, there's no benefit in their speech, and in fact, what they're calling to is things that are haram, that are falsehood, and they cover truth with falsehood. They mix truth with falsehood. And this is regarding the munafiqeen here as an example. And then the Shaykh moves on to a hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that from some speech, or of some speech, it's like magic. So some speech is like magic. When people speak in an eloquent way, in a clear and eloquent way, it can have that effect. And this is in Al-Bukhari, can be found, and it's a well-known hadith. Inna min al-bayan la sihra. So let's see what the Shaykh says about this. So let's carry on. قال رحمه الله تعالى عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما مرفوعا: إن من البيان لسحرا من للتبعيد، فليس كل البيان كذلك، وإنما من البيان لسحرا. والمراد بالبيان الذي وصف بهذا الوصف هو الكلام الذي حرص صاحبه على تزويقه وتنميقه والتفاصح فيه وعرضه بصورة جميلة شيقة للسامع، ولكن في الحقيقة هو دعوة إلى ضلال ودعوة إلى باطل. فيحسن البيان، يحسن المنطق ليسحر القلوب ويجلبها إلى الأهواء التي عنده والباطل الذي يدعو إليه. قال: إن من البيان لسحرا، أي يسحر القلوب ويؤثر في الناس مثل ما يؤثر السحر صرفا وعطفا، فهذا فيه تحذير من البيان الذي على هذه الصفة. أما البيان الكلام البين الواضح الفصيح النافع المفيد، فهذا لا يضم. So then the Shaykh he explains this hadith, and it's important to understand it. And the Shaykh he says the min in the hadith, inna min al-bayan la-sihra, the min is referring to some, is not all speech, It's some speech. So some types of speech, they have this effect of magic. And the Shaykh, he says, um, and he says the purpose of bayan here, um, and it's mentioned in this way, the word bayan, speech, or people's words when they speak. He says it's speech, or when people are talking, what they say. And that the person who speaks with this type of speech, he uh, strives and works hard to beautify speech, make it eloquent, clear, the grammar, everything about it is perfect, or try to make it perfect like that, uh, and so people hear it in a beautiful way, and that it catches the people's attention, the words that catch the people's attention. And in reality, the Shaykh says, in reality, the person is calling to misguidance, the person is calling to falsehood, and he's beautifying his speech, and in the way he speaks, his pronunciation, everything about his speech, from pronunciation to choice of words, to grammar and eloquence overall, to push his own desires and the false beliefs that he or she may have, to those people who are listening, or who are listening to that person. So the person's pushing falsehood basically, and misguidance, but in this way. And so it's trying to affect the people's hearts by way of this eloquent and clear and beautified speech. And so this is what the Shaykh is saying, and that's why it has similar, has effects like magic, how magic affects people, as we know. However, contrasting to that, the Shaykh says that as for the speech that is clear and clear to understand, and is beneficial, is actually benefit, then that is not looked down upon. Truthful, clear, clarified speech, no problem with it. It's only when it contains falsehood or misguidance. So then let's continue. Let's move on to the next hadith. وعن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما مرفوعا إن الله يبغض البليغ من الرجال الذي يتخلل بلسانه كما تتخلل البقرة. So let's have a look at the meaning of that. What does that mean, inshallah? So it's important to understand this hadith as well in the correct manner, inshallah. The meaning of where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and this is narrated by Abdullah ibn Amr, as we mentioned, as we read in Arabic, that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Verily, Allah dislikes an eloquent person who rolls his tongue as a cow rolls its tongue while eating." And inshallah, we'll get to the explanation of that as the Shaykh explains it. It's important to understand this one as well, of course. So the Shaykh, he says, قال وعن ابن عمر عبد الله ابن عمر ابن العاص رضي الله عنهما مرفوعا إن الله يبغض البليغ من الرجال الذي يتخلل بلسانه كما تتخلل البقرة. يتخلل بلسانه أي يلوك اللسان بلسانه، ويعني برعاية تزويق الكلام والألفاظ والمنطق، ولكن المضمون دعوة إلى ضلال وإلى باطل وإلى أهواء، فمن كان كذلك فإنه بغيض إلى الله. And then the Shaykh, he quotes the hadith again, as you can see in bold. So in this first short paragraph, let's get this out of the way, and then we'll move on and read the second paragraph, which is longer, so we can understand what's being said here before moving on. So the Shaykh, he goes on to say here, what does it mean about rolling the tongue like how the cow rolls it when it's eating its food? And the Shaykh, he says here, what it means is that the person is rolling it in that way because he's conjuring up this beautified speech, this eloquence, and the words eloquently and beautifying the speech, etc., as we talked about previously just a few moments ago. And the Shaykh says that the purpose of that person doing this is because the person is doing all of that to call the people to misguidance, and to call people to falsehood, and to call people to desires. And the Shaykh, he says here, so whoever is like that, then Allah dislikes that person. Allah dislikes that person who's like this. So then the Shaykh, he continues and he says, وَهَذَا يُسْتَفَادُ مِنْهُ أن مجرد الفصاحة والبيان وسلامة المنطق هو بحد ذاته ليس مدحا إلا إذا كان ذلك في الحق والهدى. يعني بعض الناس يعتني بالفصاحة للفصاحة ذاتها ولجمال الألفاظ نفسها، ليس عنده شيء من الاهتمام بدين الله والعمل على استغلال هذه الآلة التي هي الفصاحة لنفع عباد الله تبارك وتعالى، وإنما همه الفصاحة للفصاحة نفسها، هي مقصده تزويق الكلام وتنميق الكلام، ولهذا يأتني بالألفاظ عناية دقيقة، أما المضامين والحقائق لا يبالي بها. بل بعضهم، وهذا يقع كثيرا في الشعر، يبالغ في الأوصاف، بل يكذب في الأوصاف، لا لشيء إلا لأجل أن يظهر الكلام بشكل أجمل وألفاظ أحسن. ولهذا قيل أعذب الشعر أكذبه، وقيل أيضا لا يبلغ الرجل ذروة الأدب حتى يصبح قليل الأدب. فهذا الكلام الذي يقال هو في حق من كان كذلك، يعتني بالفصاحة لذات الفصاحة، يعتني بالبيان لذات البيان، يعتني بالألفاظ ولا يبالي بقضية الحقائق والمعاني هل هي نافعة أو ضارة. ولهذا بعضهم بالغ والعياذ بالله، كما قال ذلك أحد المشاهير الأدباء القدامى، قال لا دخل للعقائد في الشعر، يعني حتى لو كان في شعر مخالفة للعقيدة يقول ما يضر، لأن هذا شعر جمال الألفاظ، ولهذا يأتي في شعر الألفاظ مخلة بالعقيدة مخلة بالأدب، يقول هذا شعر، انظر أنت فقط إلى جمال الألفاظ، لا تنظر إلى ما في من مخالفة. إلى هذه الدرجة بلغ الحال ببغض الناس من اهتمامه ببعض الناس من اهتمامه بالألفاظ وتضييعه للحقائق والمضامين. So then in this long paragraph, the Shaykh, he says that, and what we can benefit from what he said so far is that and what we can benefit from these hadith that we've read and understood is that just speaking eloquently and with precise grammar and pronunciation being precise and speaking eloquently, it doesn't make you safe. Speaking precisely and without any errors and speaking cleanly, as you know, you have people speaking and they're very, very clean in their speech and precise and eloquent. Just speaking that for the sake of speaking like that is not praiseworthy. Rather, it's praiseworthy when you speak like that, but you are speaking, whatever you're saying, it's to do with the truth and guidance. The Shaykh says, meaning that some of the people, they focus and they focus on eloquence and grammar and speaking eloquently, etc., and beautifying their speech and their words and having precise pronunciation, etc. But that's all they care about. That's all they care about. They do not care about the deen of Allah and acting upon the deen and doing good and taking it further. All they care about is actually just about the speech. That's it. As long as it sounds good, is good. That's it. And they're not willing to take advantage of those situations and follow and do the right thing and take a true advantage of this tool, the tool of speech, and along with eloquence and precise speech, as the Shaykh has mentioned, to benefit the servants of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And rather, the Shaykh says that the person's what's important to them is just the speech. As long as it's eloquent, it sounds good, it's beautified speech, that's it. That's the limit for them. And that's all they want to do. This is what the Shaykh says. And that's why a lot of these types of people, they pay attention and they have very precise speech, and they pay attention, even to the minutest thing, to the words and the use of the words and etc. But however, in terms of the realities and the meanings and all the rest of it that we're supposed to be focusing on, they don't care about that. This is what the Shaykh is saying here about those people, those types of people. And the Shaykh says rather some of them, and a lot of people, he says a lot of people, we see this a lot in poetry, where someone's going in extremes with certain descriptions and get to the point where they even those verses of poetry contain lies, and all it is to do with is making it sound good and making it look good, and it sounds good and it's good, that's it. But even though it may contain lies, and the Shaykh says that's why there's some sayings like the most punished or the most punishable or shi'r, in that way, the most punishable or the worst, let's say, shi'r or poetry is the most the one that contains the most lies. And also another saying here, let's see if we can translate it inshallah along with the meaning, that a person, a man or a person doesn't reach the pinnacle or the peak of etiquette until he becomes the one with the least amount of etiquette. And the Shaykh, he mentions this and he carries on. He says that this speech, the speech that the speech that they talk and they use, it's not, they're not doing it for the sake of the truth, talking about the truth. It's just about purifying the speech, and that's where it ends. And it may contain lies, it may contain a lot of things that are falsehood, as the Shaykh has mentioned earlier as well. So then the Shaykh mentions a few things here that he's mentioned already, so I won't repeat that. And let me see if there's any here. And then the Shaykh also mentions that some of the people, what's the English word for this? The ones like the people in literacy, so those ones who are the top level of literacy, they and who are eloquent in speech, they come and they say things like, oh, there's no like worry, for example, or issue with mentioning things that are to do with the Aqidah, the Islamic creed, in poetry, even if it goes beyond the bounds, or it's a lie, or it's wrong, or it contains falsehood. This is what they say, because what they say is it's only poetry. It's only poetry. It's only for beautifying speech, and it's for that kind of thing. So we don't need to worry about, even if there are errors in that poetry, from a deen point of view, from a religious point of view. They say, oh, we don't need to worry about that. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But obviously, if there's something that there's a mistake in whatever it might be, it needs to be clarified and corrected, of course. So this is some of the viewpoints that these people have. So let's continue, inshallah, and then we just have one page to go, one page and short paragraph, and then we'll finish, inshallah. 5-10 minutes, inshallah. Then the Shaykh, he moves on to another hadith. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه مرفوعا من تعلم صرف الكلام ليصرف به قلوب الرجال أو الناس لم يقبل الله منه يوم القيامة صرفا ولا عدلا. So let's go through this, the meaning of this as well, inshallah. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, on the day of resurrection, Allah will not accept repentance or ransom from him who learns excellence of speech or the eloquence of speech to captivate thereby the hearts of men or of people. And this is what the Shaykh has been mentioning all along in this chapter, and as we can see that it's a recurring theme. So the Shaykh, he explains this, so let's go through the explanation of this, inshallah. قال وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه مرفوعا من تعلم صرف الكلام أي تعلم تزويق الكلام وتنميقه وتصريفه واعتنى عناية دقيقة بالألفاظ والمنطق. So the first part of this hadith, من تعلم صرف الكلام, the Shaykh says, what does it mean? It means a person who, as we read in the translations, the meanings here as well, that the person who focuses on beautifying their speech, focuses on the eloquence, on beautifying it, and really paying attention to right down to the letter or to the word for word, letter for letter, to that precision. Then the Shaykh moves on to the next part. لِيَصْرِفَ بِهِ قُلُوبَ الرِّجَالِ أَوْ النَّاسِ. The Shaykh, he says here, أي إليه تعلم صرف الكلام من أجل أن يقال فصيح من أجل أن يقال بليغ ما أبلغه ما أفصحه رجل عالي في بلاغته في فصاحته فتعلم صرف الكلام من أجل ذلك. What does it mean, this part of the hadith? ليصرف به قلوب الرجال أو الناس, meaning that the people will say about that person, so he's got to this level of language, precision of that language, the grammar, the morphology, the rhetoric, all of it got to that peak level in it. Why? So people will say, oh, he's eloquent. People will say, oh, look, this person's eloquent and he speaks with precise grammar, and the words and the pronunciation, everything is on point for that reason. And then the next part and the last part of the hadith, لم يقبل الله منه يوم القيامة صرفا ولا عدلا. What does it mean? And the Shaykh explains it further. He says, قيل في معنى صرفا ولا عدلا أي لا فريضة ولا نفل, وهذا يدل على خطورة مثل هذه التصرفات, أن يكون الإنسان يهتم بالمنطق والكلام واللغة والنحو والصرف والبلاغة, يعتني بها ليس من أجل الدين وإنما من أجل أن يكون رجلا فصيحا بليغا يشار له بالبنان في فصاحته في منطقه وفي بلاغته. أما الدين فلا همة له فيه. So then the Shaykh says that it said that the meaning of sarfan wala adlan, i.e. That no obligatory act of worship will be accepted from the person, and nor will anything optional be accepted. Nothing will be accepted. Zero. And this demonstrates to us the grave danger of this type of thing, and doing this type of thing, and that a person, he focuses on and is the thing that's only important to him in surrounding this topic, for example, is precise pronunciation, speech, the language, the grammar, the morphology of it, the rhetoric of it, etc. Doesn't care about anything else, doesn't learn the language for the sake of helping himself in Allah's religion and helping others. That's not his aim. The aim is that people will say, oh, so and so, fulan, so and so, oh, this man or this woman or whatever is eloquent, well spoken, and that people will talk about that person because of their precise speech, their eloquence, etc. Their linguistical skills, let's say. But regarding the deen, the person couldn't care less, not bothered. And that's a reminder for us as well, actually, is that if I may mention that when we're learning the Arabic language, then our intention should be for the sake of Allah. We're learning the Arabic language for the sake of Allah. We're learning the key to open that door to unlock knowledge, true knowledge of Islam, by accessing and having access to the scholars and having access to the books, which are vast majority of them are Arabic. I know there have been some translations, but it's not enough. We need to know the Arabic language, and we need to make it an important thing that all of us learn the Arabic language, not because it's got to do with the Arabs or the Arabian Peninsula. It's to do with our religion. We need it because it's logical anyway, isn't it, for us? The deen, the religion, was revealed in Arabic, and therefore we need to learn Arabic, because we can't truly understand it without understanding the fundamentals of Arabic language. That's the reason why we should be learning Arabic, and if we ever do that, then we should renew our intentions, make sure that we're doing it for Allah's sake, so we can understand His religion and therefore help other people. But not like this, how the Shaykh is mentioning some of these examples of people that the limit is just beautifying the speech and getting good at speech and speaking well and eloquently at the peak of eloquence, but that's all they care about. It's not actually to learn more about the deen and act upon it and make themselves closer to Allah. Rather, it's just it goes in vain. So we don't want to be like that, inshallah. We'll stay away from that kind of thing. So then the Shaykh continues, he says, وَلِ أحمد عن معاوية رضي الله عنه لعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الذين يشققون الكلام تشقيق الشعر. So let's just read this and then we'll explain it as the Shaykh explains it. We'll explain it. We'll translate the explanation here. So I'll just read the rest, finish off, and then we can wrap up. قال ولأحمد عن معاوية رضي الله عنه لعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الذين يشققون الكلام تشقيق الشعر. وفي إسناد الحديث كلام لكنه من حيث الجملة معناه كما سبق. تشقيق الكلام تزويق الكلام وتنميقه وتحسينه وتنميقه وتحسينه. وتكون همة الإنسان متجهة للألفاظ غير مبال بالحقائق والمعاني والمضامين. فهذا فيه خطورة شديدة على من كان ذلك. والواجب على الإنسان أن يكون همه هو دينه وطاعته وتقربه إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى، وأن يكون تعلمه للنحو والبلاغة والصرف ونحو هذه الأشياء من أجل خدمة دين الله، لا يتعلمها لذاتها وإنما يتعلمها لأجل خدمة دين الله. ولهذا تسمى هذه العلوم علوم الآلة، لأنها علوم خادمة لا تقصد لذاتها وإنما تقصد ليستفاد منها في خدمة الدين، فهي ليست مقصودة لذاتها وإنما هي علوم خادمة تستعمل من أجل خدمة الدين. فإذا تحول الأمر إلى أن يهمل الدين وتصبح العلوم الخادمة هي الغاية والمقصد عند الإنسان، فهذه المصيبة. وفي مثل ذلك جاءت نحو هذه النصوص ونكتفي بهذا القدر. So the Shaykh, he says here in this final 2-3 paragraphs here, he says that this hadith that we just read here, and we'll go through the meaning of it, he says it's like what we read earlier in the previous 2 hadith as well, ahadith, about beautifying the speech, that the Prophet ﷺ curses the one who beautifies their speech for the sake of beautifying it, and that's it. They don't have any concern for seeking nearness to Allah. They don't have any concern for fulfilling their obligations and helping themselves and helping others by calling to the truth, and at the same time using that speech, that tool that they have for the sake of Allah. This is what the Shaykh is saying here, because he says that the Arabic language, it's a tool, and that's why the scholars and the people of knowledge, they call this they call Arabic language, they give it a term that it's a knowledge, it's a tool, it's a knowledge that's considered a tool, basically. We'll keep it like that, it's easy to understand. And the Shaykh says, like, for example, like in the language, like when you learn the language, the grammar, the rhetoric, the morphology, etc., that these things, they are tools to help us navigate the deen of Allah, and to understand the deen of Allah, and to make us closer to Allah, and to help us be able to teach others as well, as etc., and call people to that. It's not just for the sake of learning the language and then that's it. No. So this is how the scholars view this, the people of knowledge have viewed this. And this is what the Shaykh says is more or less said in these few paragraphs here, the last few paragraphs on in this chapter. And when it's used in the way that the Shaykh has mentioned, for example, what we've been discussing all the way through this chapter, for example, when it's used just for the sake of, sounding eloquent and having beautiful speech, and that's where it stops, then he says that's a great calamity, and that we need to stay away from it. And the Shaykh says that's why it's been also been covered, as we read through the textual evidences from the Quran and the Ahadith. It's mentioned here, and that's why it's a grave danger, and that's why we need to stay away from it. And that's why also that the original author of this book, rahmahullah, may Allah have mercy upon him, mentioned it in this chapter regarding major sins, because it's considered a major sin. So inshallah we'll stop here, and then we'll continue next week same time, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala abdika wa rasulika nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi